Fine.
Okay, welcome everybody. Are we live on the YouTube stream?
We're live.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So thank you for joining us tonight for the final Cranbrook virtual meeting of 2021. I am your once and future president, Diane Hall. First off, we've got some news. We had been talking about doing a transition back to physical meetings, at least at Cranbrook, where we have a spacious room where we could be at capacity and still have about 50 people in attendance, as opposed to our normal meeting room in Macomb, where it's capped at 34 people. Half of 34 is 17. That's a bit unfair. We literally have to turn people away. However, in between Michigan's current disease stats, which are bad, to the point where I had a meeting at work canceled tomorrow because I was meeting with a member of the House of Representatives who has COVID. So that's not cool. And the Omicron variant, which we just don't know what the impact is going to be yet. There are people claiming it's mild. There are people claiming it's serious. There's been a lot of claims over the last year and a half that said that things were going to be just fine, rosy, etc. Like if some of y'all can remember, the kids don't get this, or the it'll disappear in summertime, and those weren't true. So out of a abundance of caution, the board discussed things and has decided we are not going to rush a return to in-person meetings in Cranbrook. We have the winter to evaluate things. And frankly, Cranbrook meetings, especially the January ones, have an unfortunate tradition of being canceled for weather anyway. So we'll just keep on keeping on with the virtual meetings, and Riyadh will fill y'all in on how we are going to handle the open houses, because that is a different beast with them being outdoors. So if you were concerned about a return to in-person meetings, don't worry, that's off the table for the next couple of months. If you were anticipating a return to in-person meetings, just hang on a little bit longer. We want to do it safe. We want to do it right. We want to be able to have snacks. We want to be able to chill and talk to people and all the things that made our meetings so good and so special. So just hang on. Next item of the agenda, we have our fabulous annual banquet this Thursday. And while we cannot provide you with delicious food or live music or other live forms of entertainment, we will have a special presentation given by yours truly, as is the tradition for the president, looking back upon the highlights of the year, thanking all of our fabulous presenters, and handing out the awards. If awards are not enough, we do have a special presentation from our very own treasurer, Adrian Bradley. Please mute y'all's.
Yes, I'm here.
Yay, there you are. Please mute y'all's microphones, or we will have the admin do it for you. And we have raffle prizes. We have some really sweet prizes that are going to be displayed during the course of the banquet on a loop. Dale TV put together a lovely presentation. Mark Hedzier and Jonathan Cade are going to do the honors doing the virtual door prize draw. So we have some good stuff. Do not miss it. So that is this Thursday, 3 days from tonight, taking the place of the Macomb meeting for the month of December. In other news, calendars have been ordered and shipped. They are going to be inspected for quality control by yours truly tonight, or perhaps tomorrow. Mark Hedzier has agreed to be our Postmaster General, sending them out to those who pay the $15 plus $5 shipping. We have ordered 60. We have already sold 18. Get them while they're hot. We take checks in the mailbox. We take PayPal. So get a piece
PayPal
of
preferred.
PayPal preferred by our intrepid treasurer. So get a piece of that sweet, sweet Warren Astronomical Society photographic action. Yours to admire all through 2022. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Dale Parton for his final address to us as our program chair.
Thank you, Diane. Well, as Diane mentioned, our last meeting of this calendar year is this Thursday, December the 9th. Excuse me. And Adrian Bradley will give our presentation. We've seen many examples of his excellent astrophotography this year, and I'm sure he won't disappoint us with his presentation entitled Pictures of the Sky. I suggest that this would be a good presentation to invite new people to. You don't have to know a lot about astronomy to just appreciate some really nice pictures. Then at our first meeting next year, Valerie Serlegoff will have a short presentation entitled A Self-Made Bright Artificial Star. Ken Bertin will give the main presentation entitled A Review of 2021. And finally, as always, we need speakers. We're booked up at this point through the month of February. I have one opening in March and then some later on. So if you have any inclination to give a presentation, please let me know. Thank you. Diane, back to you.
Thank you, Dale, as ever. I will now pass things over to our Observatory Chair, Riyad Mahdi, with the lowdown on Stargate.
Thank you, Diane. Hello, everyone. First, let me apologize in case my voice comes up kind of broken up because of the internet connection I'm having. This was relatively a short report. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the November 27th open house meeting due to bad weather conditions. I did go and check on the observatory that evening. Everything was fine. So we're ready for our next open house, which we have moved to the third Saturday of December due to the holiday. So it will be December 18th. And hopefully, if the weather is good, then we will have our open house. In the meantime, as was mentioned before, due to COVID, please continue to follow the information or the instructions we have given you in terms of attending the open house by wearing masks, especially if you're inside the observatory or if you come in contact with people. So as long as we can continue to do that and be safe, then we should be able to continue to have our open houses in person, unless something else happens and then we will be informed from the state if there are some other bigger issues that come up, but hopefully nothing else will happen. Also, I want to take the opportunity right now to thank Doug Bogg, who helped us out from the Northern Cross Observatory throughout about the last year and a half or so, maybe almost 2 years now, with the virtual open houses from his observatory. So that was extremely wonderful from him. A lot of work on his side, but he enjoys it, and we did too. A lot of people attended these virtual open houses, and they were extremely informative. And even when it was cloudy, we had a lot of good discussions. So thanks to Doug Bogg, also to Jonathan Cade and Dale Teamy for setting up some of the work that took place to be able to inform all the members about the virtual open houses. So hopefully everything else will work out okay for next year, and we'll be back in person for the next open houses, and hopefully we'll see everyone out there. That's all I have right now. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Riyad. Over to Mark Kedzier at the Secretary's desk.
Good evening, everyone. The minutes of the November meetings are in the WASP, and I look forward to awarding banquet prizes, the door prizes. There's some real neat things, and you're just going to have to wait till Thursday, just like you do for Santa Claus when he comes, all right? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mark. In addition to being our Postmaster General, Mark is our door prize MC. I did not say the word that begins with an R and ends with an E. Door prize MC. All right. Adrian Bradley, Treasury. What's the news?
Oh, I sent it to the board members, but Currently, our main bank account sits at $21,287.52. We have $404 of total deposits pending from new memberships. So thank you all for getting those membership checks in. My apologies to those of you who have waited more than a couple weeks to see if those checks would be cashed. We are going to implement an every Sunday pickup so that we don't fall so far behind and have you all wondering when checks are cashed. But that also means using PayPal is a good way to get your payments in early. We pick those up right online, and could be a faster way for you to update your membership and definitely purchase calendars. So I do encourage using PayPal, but if you would like to send us a check, our PO box is still good, and we will do a better job of picking up the mail from the PO box. So feel free to continue sending in your checks if that's what you would prefer. Our GLAC account is still sitting steady at $3,263.95. And due to the influx of calendar payments for the calendar and membership renewals, our PayPal account is back up to $665.48. For the last month, we took in membership renewals, new memberships, calendars, and donations totaling $481.59. The money that went out was reimbursement for calendar expenses at $754.21. We currently have total paid memberships 191. We did finally crack 190. Here are our new members. Some of that have been waiting for this announcement since November. We have Robert Hill out of Macomb Township. We have Raymond Boshard out of Clarkston. Tom Hagan out of Rochester. Michael and Patricia Dobosinski, I think I pronounced that right, out of Rochester. And Paul and Nancy Roll out of Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And that is your treasury report. I received some news before jumping on. Your treasurer is now an official RASC wide field imager. I got the news today that I completed the requirements for the certificate, and it will be coming in the mail. So I am an official RASC wide field imager. Hooray. And with that, back to you, Diane.
Congratulations, Adrienne, and congratulations to our new and returning members, some of whose names sound quite familiar as luminaries of the amateur astronomical scene. Okay, next, over to Bob Trembley in his final term limited address as outreach before he takes up mighty program chair's baton.
Well, like I keep saying in the WAS, my outreach team makes it easy. Sandra Rasica did a meteorite presentation for an astronomy club at Fox. A senior living location where John Blubb and his wife live. Tim Campbell has 4 things coming up there in the WAS. Adrian Bradley does his Explore Scientific Global Star Party every week. Ken Bertin does a weekly thing on Wednesday on Facebook. And Diane and Marty do a weekly a radio program. So we got a lot of people doing outreach. Now, if anybody's done any that I did not get in the WASP, let me know right now. Did anybody done anything else? Nobody?
Keep the cards and letters coming into Bob.
Yes. So
And,
that's it for outreach.
And since we have the changing of the guard, as of January 1st, the first VP at warrenastro.org address will be going to Bob Trembley, and the outreach at warrenastro.org address will be going to our new outreach chair, Kevin McLaughlin. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to reach Bob, he's changing his mask or his cape. And time for the final officer report. We've got award-winning editor of the award-winning WASP, Dale Teamy.
Thank you, Diane. The WASP is up. last issue of 2021, and work has started on the 2022 issues. I'm also pleased to report that the calendars have come in, and Diane's going to spot check them for quality control, and then we'll be making sure we get those sent out. So get your orders in for the calendars. They're flying off the shelf. Thank you, Diane.
Good deal. All right, time for our subgroup reports. We've got Solar Marty's not with us tonight, but I threw up a Soho link there. If anybody else wants to harvest some pictures of the sun to throw up during the break or while we're talking, that's great. We do have some minor sunspots, smaller than Earth from the looks of things, but active regions. You know, the sun's got some stuff going on, so that's good. We've got we have some very nice planetary displays in the evening. If you are going out early enough, you will catch Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus all in a beautiful arc. We've got some other stuff going on that we can cover under observing reports. So, Riyadh, status of the double star group.
Yeah, so as usual, we will have the list of objects to look at, including double stars and also planets. So also, I think Uranus and Neptune are in good position to observe as well.
Yes,
so
they
hopefully
are.
we'll be able to look at that too.
Yep, you got evening planets, cover basically everything except Mars and Mercury. Mercury slid away at the end of last month, and Mars is somewhere and not great. Okay, fabulous. Over to history subgroup, live from Florida.
Not that live. Everything's still on hold because of all the other stuff going on at the moment for the end of the year here with the club.
Oops.
Yeah. Hopefully in January I'll get something kicking.
All right. Astronomical League.
That is me. And
That is you.
I don't have anything big to report other than if you can make the Explore Scientific Global Star parties that I'm a part of. The Astronomical League helps to run those, and there are door prizes that they give out, as well as I know there's an online event coming soon, so do feel free to send me email if interested. Otherwise, for updates for what's going on with the Astronomical League, coming to the Explore Scientific Star Party every Tuesday is a good way to do that. This Tuesday, there won't be a Global Star Party, but next Tuesday, we'll be back on, and I will likely be one of the presenters again, along with a host of other astronomers, both professional and amateur, including one that got to go to Antarctica to see the total solar eclipse. So we'll see if if David Eicher is going to be back in time to see if he's going to be back in time to discuss his trip. But other than that, that's all I got.
All right, and when does the window open for dues and Astronomical League memberships, Adrian?
So it's open anytime before June of next year. That's the year basically turns over for the Astronomical League in June. That's when I have to present a list, a spreadsheet to the AL with the members that have paid their dues to renew or start their membership. And I can always put in a good word with a couple of the people. I do know some of the Astronomical League members. If you want your membership confirmed early, as in the case of a friend of mine who's in the RASC that wanted to join the Astronomical League, we can always send an email on your behalf to one of the members, Chuck Allen, Terry Mann, I believe, is the secretary. I can always send a note saying they are interested in being a member, and if you want to expedite it. But normal process, make sure when you send in your membership renewal, send in an additional $750 for the Astronomical League and get it in before I would say before June 1st. So
Right.
hopefully that answers this question.
So if you hand in your dues renewal when most members' dues expire in January, there are certain exceptions depending on when you joined the club in the first place. You can include the Astronomical League, but they won't be getting your money from us until their window opens, so there will be a gap. Now, great news, John Panuto lets me know that Bob Berta, our very own Bob Berta, has a letter to the editor in the AL's Reflector magazine encouraging solar astrophotography. I left my copy up north. I will have to retrieve it and check that out. If you have a copy of the Reflector, as many of you should, have a read. Let's see what our fellows have to say. All right. And with that, astrophotography subgroup. I don't
So
see
if
Mr.
Bill
Beers tonight.
Beers, if Bill Beers isn't here, then I'll cover. As I mentioned, I got my certificate from the RASC for basically officially a wide field astrophotographer. And later on, I'll share my URL. They created a page for me of the images that qualified me. There's 15 of them highlighting different aspects of wide field and nightscape photography. So it's they've got 3 different fields, wide field, they've got classic, there is and planetary, I believe, is the 3rd field. So if you're a member of the RASC, you can specialize and get a certificate saying that you are officially good at doing one of those 3 particular fields, and then things get published in RASC materials. So that would be the next thing, will be to continue using a new mount that I recently picked up. Sorry, that's the reason it's cloudy. I have a new little Explore Scientific mount that I'm able to use to replace my Star Adventurer, or at least do more work with it. In other news, star parties are being planned. Both visual and astrophotography takes place. I think our distinguished guest, David Levy, is going to give a talk at the Arizona Star Party, which coincides with Okie-Tex next year in 2022. So for those that can make the trip, I think it's very much worth it to go to any star party, get underneath some darker skies, and take photos, or pull out a small spotting scope or binoculars and do visual. So with that, that'll be the report for the astrophotography group.
And just to follow up on the RASC, for those of you not familiar with that acronym, it is the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, the producers of the Observer's Handbook, aka the source of all knowledge, of which there will be a copy in the door prize on Thursday. And there is a local chapter, the Royal Astronomical Society of Windsor, which has a dark sky site at Point Pelee National Park, and several of our members have either observed with them, as I have, or have presented to them, as Dale Teamy has, or Dale Parton has, or have other ties to them. So, good lot across the river, our neighbors to the south. Very good. So that brings us almost to 8 o'clock. Let us open the floor to observing reports. Raise your hand. Okay. Dr. David Levy has both hands up. Take it away, sir.
Thanks, Diane. And I think I wanted to say that the lunar eclipse a couple of weeks ago was absolutely wonderful. I observed it for several hours, and it was my 96th eclipse that I have seen. That includes everything from penumbral lunar eclipses to total solar eclipses. And one of those 96 eclipses was the 2004 total in Antarctica, which I was able to see in person. And it was really, really something. unforgettable, as all total eclipses are, whether they're of the sun or of the moon. I would like to share with you a quotation that I have from Dylan Thomas tonight. He says that old age should burn and rave at the close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Which brings me to something that we're doing with the Astronomical League. It's a new subgroup called the Junior Astronomical League. I've been in touch with the president, Carol Ord, of the Astronomical League, and he says that it is a central goal of the league to reach out to young people to get them interested in astronomy. I am certain that that is a central goal of the Warren Astronomical Society as well. In order to do that, we have started the Junior Astronomical League subgroup. We will be meeting this Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If any of you, especially younger people, would like to come, if you could send me an email, the address that I'm using for this is called Sharing the Sky, one word, Sharing the Sky, at outlook.com. And if you send me an email, I will send you the link to that. It is a Zoom meeting that'll be this Sunday. And really hoping to get some of you in the Warren group interested in this. Thank you so much. And back to you, Diane. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, do we have some more observing reports? Ken Bertin, what have you got?
Let's see if we can get this up. I've got a picture from NASA of the eclipse. Let's see if we can get it up. Let me share. Somebody. See if we can get there.
Dale, can you spot him the presenter's bowl?
I don't know what it just did. I don't know if it's getting up. Okay. Can you? I don't know whether you're able to see this. What is this? It says presenter, but the browser doesn't support sharing. Share contact. Switch to the desktop app. Just version of Chrome. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it with this computer.
Bummer.
Yeah, it is a bummer.
Do you have a link that you can throw in the chat?
Yeah, I might be able to do that.
Yeah, throw the link in the chat so we can all have a look on our own devices.
Okay, the two shots that I have are one is of the just prior to totality. There's a real nice one from NASA of the Bailey's beads, and just to the right of the Bailey's beads is a little prominence that's pretty good sized prominence. And then I have one of the total also, which also shows up the prominence a bit. But for some reason, my computer will not. Let me give this one more time. I don't think it's letting me do it. No, not going to let me do it. Okay. So what? All right. So anyway, there are pictures of you. I might send them. I might send them to you guys to the club, and maybe we can publish them. I don't know. Anyway, they're very nice. All right, go on. I'm done.
All right. Riyadh's hand is up. What you got for us, Riyadh?
One thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, the picture that you see in the background is of the lunar eclipse. And this was on November 19th at 2:42 a.m.
Nice.
I stayed up a little bit later, to see the totality or the total eclipse, but unfortunately, it got so cloudy after a while I couldn't see anything. But this was okay for a little while.
Very good. And our friend in Arizona has another thing to say, and then we'll kick it over to Dale Hollenbaugh. Dr. Levy? You're on mute, sir. There we go.
Okay. I wanted to say that when I saw the eclipse in 2004 in Antarctica, I was treated to no fewer than 12 minutes of shadow bands, 6 on either side of totality. The shadow bands just raced across the snow and ice, and it was unforgettable. I think it was more beautiful than the eclipse itself. 12 minutes. Thank you.
Wow.
Awesome.
And you didn't have to bring a white sheet or paper. The ground was good enough. So I missed the last meeting, or last several, but last month and at the end of October, I was down in Texas doing some traveling, and one of the things I did down there was we went to the one of the national parks, Big Bend National Park, which has border one skies. It's in West Texas, and I got a number of pictures of Milky Way here. Let me share my screen. And this was right in front of our lodge in the park.
Oh my.
We got there pretty late as the Milky Way was setting, but it was amazing to me. It's been so long since I've been to Border One skies. I literally had a hard time finding Polaris to polar align my tracker because all the stars were bright.
Yep.
And here's another view. This is looking north. Here you can see Andromeda. This is M33. I think that's the California Nebula, the Pleiades. Just other things to pick out. It was very bright out there. And then a couple days later, I wanted to get
Actually, Dale.
Yeah.
Dale, quick question: is that air glow you got underneath that, or that kind of that reddish glow?
Well, this dark thing is actually a mountain. I'm not sure if that. It might be air glow.
Yeah, in the Border One skies in Oklahoma, I had some greens and some I think I may have had some reds. That it was air glow and not light pollution. So yeah, very interesting. This was beautiful. I'll go back on mute, let you talk about this.
So this is really my first image of Barnard's Loop. This was in the little town of Terlingua.
Wow.
50 millimeter lens, camera lens, and I put it on my star tracker. Orion Nebula, Horsehead, Flame. There's the belt, and this is most of the constellation. I guess the Archer, the bow up here is a little bit cut off, but the Witch Head Nebula. So there's a couple of things that I hadn't gotten before separately. It's about an hour's worth of data there. So I mean, but just so many stars, so bright, and getting into these dark skies. It was kind of an eye opener. And then later on up here, this is actually my first decent picture of Venus. It's so hard to see at my house because it's really down in the trees. I actually took this photo during the daylight with an infrared filter. It's a little hard to find it in my telescope viewfinder, but yeah, it's not as sharp as it could be, but I'll get better next time. And speaking of the lunar eclipse, so a lot of Michigan was clouded out, but ironically, the thumb cleared up just in time. Adrian was headed up to the thumb, and he actually stopped by and observed at my house because of timing. So I got a complete series of the eclipse, and it was clear enough to see everything.
Wow.
Yeah, as the story goes, we looked at the skies over Dale's house and noticed that all the clouds blew away right when the penumbral shadow began to hit the moon. And
it was very
I
windy,
looked and
the clouds were moving very fast, but yeah.
Yeah. I looked and said, yeah, Dale, I'm going to take you up on that. I'll just stay here in image.
Don't bother going further north. You're just chasing the timing is gone.
Yeah. So I think it was a fortuitous bounce. I don't think we were sure it was going to be, that clear, but it's like everything just opened up.
So this is a picture at peak. I think it was 4:03 a.m. 97%. So that's the max we got, and this one is slightly beyond max. and then I went to bed.
Yeah.
So,
And
but
I
yeah,
left.
a lot of people missed it due to the weather, and so I was fortunate enough to capture it. So, wanted to share that.
Awesome.
Adrian, I just emailed you that picture of the sun. See if you might be able to put it up.
I'll see if I can do that.
Okay. Just emailed it to you just now.
Okay. See if I can share content. Well, first, excuse me. I will check the email and see if I have it. I thought I'd see your email, but I don't see it.
Okay.
Where did you sent it to ATV Sigma
Your-
at? I'll
Yeah.
keep checking to see if it comes in. But in the
Okay, good.
meantime, what I will do is I will share oh come on, I should be able to share my screen. I guess this is what I will do. Using the iPhone is a little difficult, but I can get around that.
Okay.
Yep, send it and I'll see if I can get it. But in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll just do a screenshot of
Okay. I could also send it to you by iPhone too. Text message.
Okay.
Let's try that.
That'll work too.
I mean, we don't have to do it right away. I'm saying sometime during the meeting.
Yeah, I'll shoot you my number. So let me try this. I'll try
Yeah,
sharing.
y'all can sort it out during the break. If there's anybody else with observing reports, let's hear them. Mr. Blum.
I convinced 7 people here at Fox Run Senior Community in Novi to go out with me from 2 to 4 a.m. and I had approximately 10 seconds view of the eclipse between the clouds during those 2 hours, but none of them had ever seen any sort of eclipse before, so they were happy anyway.
Very good. All right, more observing reports. We went up to the dark sky site this past weekend, but it was cloudy, and then the next night was a snowstorm, and we bailed out. So that was that. Did have a beautiful view of the Winter Hexagon on the way home, but other than that, nope. Okay. Well,
What's the Winter Hexagon?
oh, thank you for asking. Okay, as asterisms go, of course, we've got the summer triangle, which is the big right triangle formed by Vega, Deneb, and Altair around the Milky Way. The winter counterpart, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, because obviously south, it's summer, is a giant polygon, sometimes called a circle, but I like the word hexagon, formed by, in order around the clock, Capella, Aldebaran, Rigel, Sirius, Procyon, and then Castor and Pollux making the final point. It's got Betelgeuse very close to its center, so you have this absolutely dazzling display of 8 first magnitude or brighter stars just framing, one of the greatest constellations in our sky, which is Orion. And then since the ecliptic goes through there, they are often joined by the moon, Mars, Jupiter, and other planets, making just incredible displays. So yeah, love the Winter Hexagon. I learned the phrase from Chet Ramo's 365 Starry Nights, which is one of the formative books that got me into astronomy as a very small child. So awesome question. Thank you, Dale.
Link in the chat.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, so we have an unconventional bit of programming tonight, so I'd like to give everybody time to decompress, grab a drink, sort out your images, have your chit chat, and then allot enough time for our unusual presentation. So we have not done something like this in a long time. So it's 8:10. Let's give it a 20-minute break. Be back here at 8:30 to hand things over to Dr. Dale, to hand things over to Bob for our, oh wait, my mistake. This is a Cranbrook meeting.
Right.
We have a short presentation.
We
And
do.
then we have the break. Dr. Dale, I need another cup of tea. I will hand things over to you.
Okay, I'm glad you remembered that. I should have reminded you a little quicker, I guess. Well, Dale Teamy will give our short presentation tonight. Dale has been a member of the society since 2007. Not nearly as long as some, but a lot more than a lot of us. So kudos to Dale for that. He has served as a surrogate secretary, then was elected a secretary, then served as treasurer, now as publications officer and editor of the W.A.S. One might say that he is part of the glue that holds this society together. He's done such an excellent job of editing the W.A.S. that he received the Astronomical League's Mabel Stearns Newsletter Award recently. Furthermore, he's done all this the last few years remotely while living in Florida. Tonight, Dale will give a short presentation with the rather intriguing title, Triumph and Tragedy in 3 Acts. Dale, you're on.
Thank you, Dale. The get the right screen up here. Get some of this stuff out of the way. Okay. This kind of comes out of my work on digitizing the old W.A.S. It's taken me down many research trails. Now, I usually acquired older books of astronomy to aid in accuracy with the digitizing of the old W.A.S., hence the copy of Olcott's Field Book of the Skies on my bookshelf. I don't know if there was a need to have a celestial handbook for that purpose, but like with Gary Ross's Shining Mountain talk, something triggered my search mode, and I discovered Robert Burnham's Jr. story and scored a pristine set of his celestial handbook. Now, an amateur astronomer who was also a newsman, Tony Ortega, enjoyed using Burnham's celestial handbook. Curious about the author, Tony sought him out hoping for an interview and began a strange and wondrous journey of discovery. Here we see Robert at the same telescope that Clyde Tombaugh used to find Pluto. Now, Act 1. This first act encompasses Robert's youth to his employment at Lowell Observatory and, of course, his triumph. His family moved out to Prescott, Arizona before his teens in 1940, a place probably very conducive to growing a passion for astronomy and mineralogy. After spending 4 years in the Air Force, he returned to Prescott and took a job as a shipping clerk and got back under the night sky with a scope. It was during this early period that he discovered a comet. He tried notifying Lowell Observatory but failed to get a response. However, he also fired off a telegram to Harvard University, which cemented his claim to a place in the comet's name, Comet Ladyshev-Wild-Burnham. It also got his name in the papers, which resulted in both a visit from Senator Barry Goldwater, who gifted him with a family telescope, and an apology from Lowell Observatory. Somewhere along the way, he found the astronomy reference books somewhat lacking for his taste, too dry. As he was well acquainted with other cultural views of the heavens from his reading, he set about enhancing his observation notes with references to mythology, cultures, folklore, and coins. he had a wide range of interests. By 1957, he had grown to 1,200 pages in 6 notebooks. Now, Lowell Observatory was involved in the proper motion survey and engaged the young men to do the grunt work along with the blink comparator, Robert among them. The blink comparator was a device used to compare 2 photographic plates to find out what moved. Clyde Tombaugh found Pluto that way. Access to the Lowell Library no doubt helped swell the pages in his notebooks, and he was encouraged by friends to get them published. That proved nearly impossible to do. There were no takers. He decided to self-publish, engaging family and friends to help with the nightmarish job of collating the sheets, producing a 3-ring binder set of 8 volumes to sell. His niece, Donna Courtney, recalled marching around the long table covered with papers with others at the Lowell Observatory, helping to collate the pages for the binders. Published in 1966, it garnered good reviews. By 1976, Robert finally got a deal from Dover Publications to publish his book as the 3-volume set shown here. The proper motion survey went much longer than the original 2 years planned, 21 years. And in that time, Robert and his workmate, Norm Thomas, discovered thousands of high motion stars as well as several comets, asteroids, and 2,000 new white dwarf suspects. When the survey ran out of funding and Lowell had no position for Robert apart from custodian because he had no degree, he left and took an apartment, but funds started running short despite the royalty checks from Dover. Meanwhile, the handbook kept gaining in popularity. As Sky and Telescope's second review put it, and regarding what observers saw in the sky, what does Bertin say about it? The book had indeed become a classic. In 1982, Robert interviewed himself, giving some insight to his philosophy and mindset, which was published in Astronomy magazine. Then he vanished. Robert's sister Viola went to Flagstaff and rescued his belongings after paying the back rent. A search of the desert where Robert often went rock hunting only produced his abandoned VW bus. 7 weeks after his disappearance, Robert was spotted in Newport Beach, California. Robert had no idea how he wound up there. He had been hallucinating until he snapped out of it when an officer asked his name. Viola asked him about his disappearance, and his answer was so strange, she recorded her remembrance of it so she wouldn't forget it. He had gone to Mexican Pocket to look for treasure and had fallen asleep, said Viola on the tape. Then he woke up, and he thought it was very early in the morning, the time of day when vision is very poor. He looked toward the place where he had left the van, and he saw 2 life-size elephants and some figures of people moving around the elephants. Then the elephants faded, and he saw a woman carrying a child, and that figure faded, and then he saw a cat, and he said to himself, at least I know the cat is real. But as the cat came towards him, it sort of shimmered and just dissolved. Then he said everything went crazy. Robert told her a tale of fragments of visions, his hand magically going through the door of a car, traveling on a city street in another van, in a hotel room high in the sky with a big window without glass, a tremendously loud sound that forced him toward the open window, someone saying, "Let's go to the beach." But the moment he heard himself say his name to the Newport Beach police officer, Burnham felt normal. From that point on, he could account for his whereabouts. He had no memory how he came to Newport Beach, no idea of reality during the prior 7-week period. All he remembered were the hallucinations, Viola says. Robert's niece, Donna, came out and retrieved him from the shelter where he stayed after being treated for a 2nd-degree sunburn on his feet. He lived in his sister's trailer now, spending all his time in there. This proved a little too crowded for her, and she moved out, but kept pressuring him to at least try to get a job. Then Robert disappeared from the family again, this time for good. In one attempt to locate him, his sister found he had his royalty checks forwarded to an undisclosed address. He was found, quite by accident, when Bruce Thomas, the son of his former colleague from Lowell, Norm Thomas, visited San Diego's Balboa Park. A disheveled, bearded man was spotted selling paintings of cats, As he passed, he took a second look and blurted out, "Bob?" It was him, and they spent a while talking. Bruce eventually got up to leave and bought a painting much like the one you see here. He visited Robert a few more times, bought a couple more paintings, and then when his dad came to visit one Christmas, they both went to see him and had a pleasant chat. They never saw Burnham again. His niece's husband, David Bastook, was studying to be a private investigator, and she suggested to him that Robert might be a good case subject to practice on, as no one knew his whereabouts. He eventually found that Robert died 2 years before. He had died of congestive heart failure from a heart attack he suffered weeks before entering the hospital. He also had a blood clot in his heart, gangrene one foot, and pneumonia. When he died, his name was misspelled in the records, complicating efforts to locate him. He was cremated, and a marble headstone with his misspelled name placed on the wall at Point Loma's Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery. The misspellings have since been fixed. The manager of the space theater you see here near Balboa Park had seen Robert at the park and was dumbfounded when he found out who Robert really was. Quote, "What a resource he could have been." Now, this could have also been called the tale of two Burnhams, for there was another Burnham named Robert who had a different life trajectory at the same time. In fact, many mistook Robert Burnham, editor of Astronomy magazine, for the authorship of Robert Burnham Jr.'s handbook simply because he was a prolific writer and editor of astronomy books. Through no fault of his, but that everyone kept missing the Jr. bit, I imagine. He has even been known to sign off with, "Not that Burnham." Now retired, he spends a lot on camera. I had an exchange of emails with him where he related his own run-ins with a publisher and explained how one book came to have two names. He says, "The story behind the advanced sky watching equals backyard astronomy titles is that the publisher, the Nature Company, insisted on titling the follow-on to David Levy's original sky watching as Advanced Sky Watching. They thought it was essential to keep the word sky watching in the title of the second book and could not be budged on this. As the editor of the book said to me, why don't they just title it Really Hard Physics and wreck the sales completely? We lost that battle with the hardcover edition, but the paperback got titled Backyard Astronomy, which should have helped his sales somewhat. Now, Robert Burnham Jr. has been honored with an asteroid named for him. Norm Thomas, in naming the asteroid, found the name Burnham was already used, so he proposed Robert Jr.'s German family name, Bernheim. Robert was pleased with that, and now we have 3467 Bernheim, 1981 SF2. Discovered by Norm Thomas. Robert Burnham Jr. discovered 6 comets, and here are 3 I was able to find. And there is a plaque honoring him at the observatory. It is styled after the format of his books. Now, this plaque is the result of efforts and collaboration of amateur and professional astronomers in establishing a Robert Burnham Jr. memorial at Lowell Observatory. It started with Tony Ortega's 1997 article in the Phoenix New-Times that brought Burnham's story to light, and Mike Gilmer's August 2006 suggestion on the Cloudy Nights Forum to memorialize Burnham. Then came the project of designing a plaque and finding a location and boulder at Lowell Observatory. Finally, the celebration and unveiling on August 15, 2009. The plaque is mounted in a boulder on the Pluto Walk between Jupiter and Saturn. In the June 2021 issue of the W.A.S, on page 23 under About the Cover, there are links to the Ortega article, a very worthwhile read, and the live stream interviews. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. And having been confused by the Robert Burnham duplicates more than a few times over the years, I very much appreciate that explanation of the tale of two Burnhams, sad though it was. Do we have any questions for Dale? Dr. David Levy.
Yes, I'm more of a comment. I really enjoyed your talk tonight. Wendy and I both listened to it with rapt attention.
Oh, thank you.
I knew Bob Burnham. I met him in June of 1967. We were at a tour of Lowell, and he was giving this, it was during his glory days, he was giving this wonderful animated tour. And one of the people said, "What's your name?" And he said, "I'm Bob Burnham." And the guy knew him, and he said, "You mean the guy who's discovered half a dozen comets?" I had just started comet hunting at the time. And he told me, he said, "All I can say is avoid the Milky Way and avoid the Virgo group of galaxies. And someday, sooner or later, you're going to find one." And he was right. And I remember reading that article and tonight's lecture, reacquainting myself with Bob Burnham was really, really special. I enjoyed this immensely. Thank you so much for reminding me of this very special person. Thanks.
All right. Other questions, comments? Oh, very good. Very good. And now we'll get that 20-minute break. Let's get back here to 8:45 for our unconventional feature presentation. And yes, Adrian, you need to read the handbook set. The handbook is essential. It may not be the source of all knowledge, but it is seriously good stuff. So see y'all in 20 minutes. Cheers if you got them.
Adrian's got those pictures, and he's probably going to put them up during this period of time.
Putting them up right now, Ken. There's the Bailey's beads image he sent, which was a beautiful Bailey's bead image. And I wonder if I'm able to. Okay, I guess I have to reshare.
You got
Not
the total.
sharing. Yeah, I have totality as well. I'm gonna look for that. Oh, I gotta save it. Let's see. Cancel sharing for now. Let me go save that one.
Okay.
And then I will. There's the totality one right there. I should be able to share that.
These
now.
are from. These were from NASA, by the way. So
yeah.
this was
So
overnight, and I just took pictures of it as they were showing them up. And as David will attest, you can't do as good with it with your eye with the camera as you can with your eyes, and that's the key to going. This is totality coming up.
Yep.
That's totality. Look at that
totality. Yeah. Notice if you compare it to 2017, the streamers are not as well defined.
No,
and I
but
don't know if that's.
They
Go
stopped
ahead,
it.
Kim. Go ahead.
They stopped it down. That's why, because that's the only way they're going to get that the prominence. So they never let it up. So,
yep, I do see the prominence. Hopefully, I'm not sharing severe weather alerts. Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah, but it was
doing this on my phone.
Yeah, and then there was another picture that I sent you by email, and I sent it to several of the other ones too, from a friend, Johnny Horn, who took some pictures of sequential pictures, which were really very cool. So we win all the way across. Do you know Johnny? Don't you, David? David?
Here we go.
You know Johnny Horn, right? Have you met Johnny Horn? I can't hear you. You might be muted.
He might be. He's either muted or he
Yes,
took a
I
break.
do know him. Sorry about that. I was muted, but I do know him, and boy, that's a nice eclipse. Wish I could have seen it.
Here's the picture of the
There's the wide angle sequence of that eclipse.
Where was this taken?
Antarctica.
I thought it was visible in South Africa.
What's that?
South Africa. I think that might have been just partial.
Yeah, it had. Yeah, the thing was right across the middle of Antarctica, right near the mountain. There's a big mountain there, I guess, which is the one they took the picture of. That's on the continent itself. But
are there any bases, or do people have to fly in to the spot?
They flew in and landed, and they were able to get to a point where they could see it pretty easy. So yeah, the last one that those that went to the
My
last time, most of them went on boat to get there by boat.
yeah, they either flew in or they went in on boat because coming out of Antarctica, it's cold there. So at the time, boats I think are easier to use to get to and from parts of Antarctica.
Yep. But that was
very
beautiful.
It's what my RASC Astro Imaging front page looks like. And I posted that in the I posted those in the chat. So this
what
was
the criteria, Adrian, that you had to meet to? You were telling me that there was a list of various type of targets, right?
Yes, and you had to get 15 images highlighting 15 targets. Now, Milky Way is in everything I shoot, so there were several Milky Way shots, but you had to do things where if you had planets in the picture, the moon by a DSO, eclipses, and I can't scroll this, but since I had some pictures of the partial eclipse, I included those, star trails, all sorts of wide field. The comet ended up being a part of it. The few images you see there, a couple of these are from the same category, but they were images that they liked enough to put on my front page. But there's basically 15 different categories. There's maybe 25 categories, and make that 20. And if you do 15 of them, and the judges are past experience, wide angle, some are classic astrophotographers, but a couple of the wide angle judges will look over your work and decide if that work is worth posting or not. And once you send 15 images that they find or post or present worthy, then you get a certificate saying you're an official RASC. And I think you do have to belong to the RASC in order to have that have the opportunity to send in the images. So it's like you have to be a RASC member, and yearly dues aren't super cheap. It's north of $100 a year, but then you get your discount, discounts on some of the publications that the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada will put out, and you can get certificates for your work. So those certificates, I think, are a step towards having your work published in the RASC materials. So you can submit stuff, and it'll end up in one of the magazines. I can't think of the publications. I don't think Sky and Telescope is its own. The Reflector is Astronomical League. So it's the RASC's publications, and your work can be featured in those.
Okay, well, I'm looking at your portfolio there on the RASC page. It's good.
Yeah, they're all images you've seen me post on Facebook.
Well, I haven't, I've missed a number of them, or it's been a while, whatever.
That Aurora, I took a ton of Aurora pictures, and that Aurora picture was probably the neatest, tightest framed one. And I think I turned around and took it right after taking another one of the images. I need to actually look at that portfolio, because once I got the word and I saw the images, and I said, cool. So you have somehow my favorite tree with the Big Dipper over it made my portfolio. The Aurora from Point O'Bark Lighthouse with all the colors framed by trees. You've got a Milky Way photo over the lake. That was a 2-minute exposure, basically a 2-minute composite exposure of the sky exposure of the lake, and best combination I've ever done now or ever since. I got to get back to doing that. Star trails with the Milky Way in it in Oklahoma. The Christmas star, Jupiter and Saturn, over this tree during during that December, I think a couple years ago, when Jupiter and Saturn were near each other in our point of view. Comet Neowise, you've got a solar crescent rise. You've got a Milky Way with a detailed Milky Way from Okie-Tex, red sunset, gibbous waxing moon. My picture of the conjunction through a telescope the day before closest pass. I've got a meteor and moon. I've got the Point O'Bark lighthouse, the shot that you can't take anymore. Venus and the moon, another Point O'Bark, Orion, Milky Way, ducks passing by a moon. Cygnus
Got that one
region
with
over
the
the little
zodiacal
tree.
light.
Zodiacal light, yeah, that was my best. If you say what's the best one on here that I'm fond of the most, it would be that zodiacal light crossing with the winter Milky Way going all the way to the horizon, and Orion. That was basically
Wow.
opening light for my modified camera. I really like that photo. I like
Adrian,
seeing it naked eye.
Adrian, I got another email to you from Johnny Horn. It's a picture of Comet Leonard passing M13. It's in your email.
Damian Peach did it. Damian Peach did one of those too. I don't think this image is possible to get anymore. It got cloudy here, and I tried for it, and it isn't to be because the comets move too far. I will let me save this one, Ken.
Save it.
I can share it. It's a beautiful shot. I'll save it to my camera roll.
He's extraordinary. He really is. I met him at the eclipse of 1991, David. I saw him at in Baja, which
So he's been doing it a while.
It
does help when you do this thing you do it for a while. You get really good at your process.
Yeah, I guess we both saw him back then. I saw that eclipse.
Yes. Were you in the Baja?
Here's the image.
Yes.
Yep, that's the image. Damian Peach has a similar one. I think Damian Peach does a lot of good detail, accurate comets. Just say this gentleman's name again, because he did a great.
No,
He did
Johnny
fabulous job.
Horn. Johnny Horn. Horne.
Johnny Horn. Yeah, he did a fabulous job with this as well. And that's what I was hoping to get. I was actually hoping to get the comet yesterday or the day before. It was near two globular clusters. There was a fainter globular cluster, an NGC object in Boötes that if it was basically in between both M3 and that fainter NGC object. And that would have been a nice shot.
I talked to him about it, and I said to him, I said, there was no plasma tail. She says, yeah, we couldn't pick it up for some reason. No plasma tail.
Yeah, I think it's still too far away. Magnitude 5.
And it also may be pointed away from us. That's the other thing too. So that's another factor.
Which means it's on its way back out.
The current the Comet Leonard?
Yes, Comet.
I have seen a photo. Someone went pretty deep on it, and there is two tails. So there must be one must be a plasma tail.
And the plasma tail is apparently much dimmer. Much dimmer. I mean,
then straight.
Oh,
curves a little bit, kind of like Neowise, but they seem to be close to each other. See if I can find that.
Oh, and by the way, Dale, remember that image the composite image we tried to do of the Pleiades and the lunarly eclipsed moon?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't qualify for that certificate. I took the images with two different lenses, and they were like Yeah, that disqualifies you because it has to be the same lens, same perspective. So even though that one would have been on my page if they had accepted it, because I shrank the moon to the same proportion as what you would see visually, but because it was a different lens, they didn't go for it. So I was back and forth for maybe 2 months,
You could put it on
sending new
yours
images and
anyway.
waiting for responses. And then finally, the last few that I sent put it over the edge.
Adrian, you should use that on your webpage anyway, I think.
Well, I absolutely will. In fact, I have time to edit my presentation on Thursday to include that image.
Good.
Good for
I
you.
will. I have a spot for that. Matter of fact, I'm going to make a new slide with my. I have an idea for a new slide that I can add to the presentation, and it'll have that image in it along with a couple others. So definitely. Yeah, my presentation's almost done. It was a little closer to done until just now, and I got this idea. So now it's a slide away from being done. So we should be ready for Thursday.
Cool.
I'm going to share a picture here.
Go for it. I am going to go rejoin this on a computer. I just pulled up at home, so I'll be watching along. Nice shots. Is that who did that one, Dale?
This is not one of my photos. This is by a gentleman named Jason Cropper.
Wenzel? Oh, I thought it might have been Wenzel.
But this is Comet Leonard, but I remember seeing this and he had a separate tail, and I'm interpreting that as an ion tail, plasma tail.
Yeah, I would say that is absolutely.
Yeah.
No
Take
question.
the RASA. If you're
Yeah,
familiar
not
with
at all.
that, that is a very fast focal ratio telescope, so gathers a lot of data. So
There's no question that's a plasma tail. None at all.
yeah. So as it approaches closer, I think more people are going to be able to see these.
That would be nice.
So
yeah, quite an image. I think that thing's supposed to get up to around what is it about? It's supposed to get to three magnitude, third magnitude. It's not there yet. I know that, but
isn't it supposed to be visible to the naked eye in the next week or something?
yeah, that's what I understand.
I believe so.
It's up to 3 or 4, something like that.
Yeah.
It's approaching NeoWise's viewing standards. So yeah, I'm gonna have.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that bright.
Yeah, I didn't think it was, but it's apparently brightened more than they expected. Is what happened.
Okay.
So they expected it to not get past 6, a +6, and apparently it's up around 3 or 4.
How
look to it with Comet Leonard.
Leonard, how bright was that?
I'm saying Leonard could get.
I'm sorry. NeoWise.
NeoWise was about 2.5, something like that, plus 2.5, because it was easily naked eye. So it was in skies like in Michigan, you better be up around 3. You better be up more if you're going to see it with your naked eye. But it was available at that. Yeah.
NeoWise
I was up at that time.
It's supposed to be really low.
Yeah,
What's that?
I was at a roadside park on the thumb. So northeast is very easy to see right on the horizon. But there are clouds on the horizon. That's the hard part about shooting over the lake. If there's distant clouds, you're not going to see anything. It can be clear up top, but distant clouds will ruin your look.
Oh.
Look at this one.
All right. I
Terrific.
see y'all have
Yep.
been having fun on the break here, but it
That's an
is
incredible shot there by that guy, Dan Bartlett.
That is a great shot. Yes.
it is 8:44. Let's come back to the normal order of business because we have a treat for y'all tonight. I'll give
We had
y'all a minute.
We had fun here, by the way, so we're good.
Good,
Break.
good. It's not exactly snack break, but y'all are clearly having a good time.
Yep.
All right. Dr. Dale Parton, are your necessary personnel available?
Well, that's up to Bob Trembley to decide.
Understood. Well,
Um,
and Trembley has arrived. Mr. Trembley, are your
Hello.
necessary personnel on deck and available?
I believe so.
All right.
My
it is-
my wife is really tired, so she might be joining us on audio only.
That's fine. It's Monday. All right. I will now turn things over to Dr. Dale Parton, our program chair, one more time.
okay, thank you, Diane. The full-length presentation, and I'm not sure that word fits exactly for tonight's event, will involve a panel discussion led by Bob Trembley. He has major interests in asteroids, near-Earth objects, and meteorites. He's also quite a fan of various software packages. I think maybe Kerbal Space Program might be his favorite. And he's going to be taking my job starting next month. So he's a busy guy. His subject will be anti-science sentiment in the United States. And I'm going to let him introduce the other panel members. Bob?
All righty. Well, this is this is a panel discussion format. I'm modeling it after conventions I've been at, both science fiction conventions and a couple science conventions. Our speakers tonight are, and I can't believe I'm saying this, David Levy. He is the discoverer of 22 comets, co-discoverer of Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, which plowed into Jupiter, one of the most spectacular explosions witnessed in the solar system. And I can't believe he's a regular attendee at our meetings. Diane Hall, our illustrious president, and she knows more about the space program than I ever will. Ken Bertin, a member who has been, I think he's had every position in the club, I'm not sure, but he has chased eclipses around the world. And my wife, Constance Martin-Trembley, that she might be would join us on audio. She's a science teacher, middle school science teacher, and we are both running an after-school science club. Now, I brought up this topic at our last Cranbrook meeting as a suggestion about what if, and I practically had to beat people off because they wanted to start talking about this so much. So let me give you a little background. In 2014, the North American Science Fiction Convention was held down at the Renaissance Center, and I got several members of our club to come and give talks at this convention about various science things. But one of the things they wanted me to have people talk about was anti-science sentiment in the U.S. Now, again, this is 2014. Now, my job as part of that convention con committee was I had to get people to come and talk, and I sent out requests. Would you be interested in this? And I sent out the request. 30 people wanted to talk at this, and I had to beat people back. Essentially, we had like 4 or 5 people on this panel, and our Gary Ross was one of them. And I'm going to compare and contrast at the end of this a couple of the ideas that I brought away from that. So again, what we're going to be talking about is anti-science sentiment in the United States, and I'm going to bring up a 1995 Carl Sagan quote. It says, "We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology." So, and I'd like to inject a little bit of astronomy in there, and my, for instance, on that would be today at my after-school astronomy club. I mentioned to the students that any of you guys heard of the Horsehead Nebula? None of them had, and I was like, oh my goodness. So I had to educate them about that. But so this is going to be lightly moderated. I am going to invite the audience to come and talk every once in a while, but have at it, folks. Who wants to go first?
David should go.
David, go first.
Indeed.
Okay. All right. Thank you all so much. And thanks, Bob, for inviting me to be a part of this. I'm going to begin as I usually do. So I always do with a quotation. And this one I found while I was reading Isaac Asimov's book, The Gods Themselves. And the forward on the
Turn the
front
fucking volume up.
Okay.
Get the dick out of your mouth.
I'm trying to do that. But anyway.
Well, keep going, David. We can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Quit bootlicking.
This is a quotation.
Excuse me, who is talking? And you are being totally inappropriate.
Dale,
No,
just boot them.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, David. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I'm in the middle here. But anyway, as I begin again, the Asimov book, The Gods Themselves, and the quotation is from the frontispiece of that book. "Against stupidity, the gods themselves contend in vain." Anti-science is something that we're not going to solve tonight, and we're not going to solve it in our lifetime. But I'd like to begin with a couple of stories. One of them, this story has to do with Wendy's battle with breast cancer that she's having right now. And she and I were meeting with her physician's assistant, Linda. And Linda told a story about a lady that she was treating for breast cancer for years, trying this treatment and that treatment. And she had been treating this lady for years with breast cancer. And then came the pandemic, and this lady absolutely refused to get a vaccination. She begged her, Linda begged her repeatedly to get a vaccine, and this lady was an anti-vaxxer. Anyway, the last time Wendy talked with Linda about this, Linda sadly reported that this patient had died because from the COVID, because she refused to get a vaccine. She was an anti-vaxxer. When it comes to science, Wendy and Linda feel very strongly and very emotionally that you have to follow the science with this. This lady refused to follow it. She refused to get a vaccine after all the treatment that Linda had tried to get for her. She then refused to get vaccinated, got COVID, and died last week. I really don't know what to say about that. Carl Sagan is absolutely right. With our society so dependent on science right now, almost no one knows anything about science, including, I'm sad to say, our president, who in his inaugural address said, "I believe in science." And this is one way, much as I respect our president right now very much, one way where I think he is mistaken. Because science is not something that we believe in. It is certainly something that we follow. We follow the research of the scientists, but it is not something that we believe in. Science by nature is not to be believed in. Science is not something we believe in. Science is a way of life. It is a way of thinking. someone comes up with an observation or a theory, and then we come up with the scientific method where we come up with an explanation for this theory, and then that explanation is tested. It is tested by further observations. And then if it works right, it'll either be replaced with another theory or that theory will be confirmed. This is part of the nature. This is the nature of science and the scientific method. I like to see science as a way of life. For me, it is a passionate way of life. I am not an astronomer, and I think many of us here are not astronomers, but we love and are passionate about the night sky. We go out and we observe the sky, and we look at Comet Leonard and all the other things that can be seen with joy and with emotion, just to enjoy it, to feel it, to see what is up there in the night sky. And when someone comes up with a better theory about comets, we will follow that theory. And so I'd just like to conclude by saying that our joy in looking at the night sky is sufficient for us to see that there is something out there. The night sky gives us a big picture. It gives us something that we cannot get from the nightly news. It gives us something to enjoy, something to look forward to, something to see, and something to marvel at. It is not something we believe in, but it is something that we follow and should follow. And now back to you, Bob.
I remember during the 2017 total solar eclipse, my wife and I stayed here in Michigan, and we had a whole bunch of solar glasses and stuff, and we were handing them out to people, and we were just handing them out to anybody who'd take them. And there was a family out on the pier who we went up and asked them if they would like to see the eclipse, and the father said no and would not let his children see that. And I'm just like, I didn't know what to say to him. Why would you not want to have your children experience this? You're out here and everybody around you is experiencing this. I was just a little confused at that.
Yeah, I would be as well. And I think the idea of not allowing children to see an eclipse of the sun, which they can easily do safely, is almost criminal. But
Say, Connie, can you tell about your story there?
Backing into what David Levy was saying, we fight it all the time in education. I constantly will tell my students we follow the science, we follow the facts. It doesn't matter what I'm teaching. When I teach, for instance, global climate change, I've had students come up and say, well, my bus driver says that it's not real. And my response is generally, well, what science degree does your bus driver have for them to say this? It's following the science. What are the facts? And it's teaching the kids Facebook is not a reliable means of getting your facts and information. And unfortunately, that's permeated society. When it comes to COVID, when it comes to global climate change, when it comes to, anything like this, people turn to social media and will listen to those who are expounding on social media, their opinions, and not listening to the science and listening to the facts. They're not following the facts. What Bob is alluding to is years ago, there was a partial solar eclipse, and my daughters were going to a private school down the street from us. And I had called the school. They didn't have solar glasses back then, but my dad was a welder and could get welding helmets, enough for every child in the school to wear one and see the eclipse. And when I called to ask if they were interested in this was before I was a teacher, I was told that they didn't want to interrupt the educational process. I couldn't figure that out because to me, there was nothing more important in the educational process than having children experience this firsthand. So of course, I got several friends, called them, told them that they were taking their kids out of school and this is what we were doing. And even the adults were, well, what's a solar eclipse? So it's very hard to teach children when the adults themselves don't know. And when the adults themselves tend to follow right now, unfortunately, very unreliable information, and it costs right now very, very big, especially, you know, when it comes to COVID. So
1994, if you don't mind me jumping in, because this is a good point for this. I took my telescope and about, I'd say about 150 or 200 solar glasses to Grove's School, where my daughter was at, and took about 400, 500 kids outside with during an annular eclipse we had in 1984. I think it was May 9th, 1994. And I had called the Bloomfield Hills school system and said that I was going to have this go on during school for the Groves kids, which were the Birmingham school system. And several of the middle schools came over from there. But the Bloomfield High School superintendent said to me, "We're not doing it because we're afraid of lawsuits. You're not allowed to look at an eclipse." I said, "Well, I got solar glasses. We got a whole bunch of astronomy buffs. Here we're going to take, no, we're not going to take a risk. We're going to keep our kids inside." This was the superintendent of the Bloomfield Hills system. And I said, "That is not education, sir." You see my sweatshirt, it says science doesn't care what you believe. And that's the problem that you've got with the society today. The problem is they fall back on a thing called agenda. And what it does is they turn everything today into something political. And science isn't politics. That's the deal. It's not politics. And the problem that you have with the society today is they reach out for a controversy instead of accepting things what they are. And science is not going anywhere. I always tell people this. Look, I say to them, and Diane, you've heard me say this. I've said to people, look, I said, I can answer you any question in astronomy you ask. I don't have to be right, but you're not going to know the difference. Because literally they don't have a clue. And that's the problem you have with society today. And the parents are passing it along to their kids.
Well,
and that's a real problem.
I'd like to take a little step back and a little trip back in time because I did not go to school in Michigan. I have no education here in any of the Michigan colleges, high schools, what have you, other than some engineering classes at Henry Ford College. I went to high school in Tennessee in the 1990s. And it was the premier public high school of Memphis, the largest city in Tennessee. So it was a notable academic school, but a public school. And we were quite aware of our budget issues. There were generally 2 science teachers per grade per subject. So 2 chemistry teachers, 2 biology teachers for the year where we were required to have biology, 2 physics teachers. And I must say that Tennessee's graduation requirements for the college-bound path required a lot of science. I mean, we had to have three years of science, 3 years of math. It was comprehensive. But we didn't have money, even at this magnet school. And so you knew, if you got lucky, you got the chemistry class taught by the girls' soccer coach. If you were unlucky, you got the class taught by the football coach, in which case you were not learning a lot of chemistry that year. If you were lucky, you got the biology class that was allotted that year's actual hands-on experiments. If you were unlucky, you got the class that got the short end of the straw and you did not get the actual things to dissect, which most people were fine with. And of course, these days, I'm sure they would be using computer models, but nonetheless, That's how the place was run. And I was a science crazy kid. I wanted to be a scientist. I was encouraged to be a scientist, to take a scientific path by my teachers. And lo and behold, I'd get my good grades, I'd get my AP classes, I do everything right. And I get to my dream college, Stanford University. And I find out suddenly, very abruptly, how inadequate my education, my laboratory experience, my hands-on practical scientific experience was at this renowned, respected Southern public school that did not have money. If you want to look at why we have problems, you need to take a step back and look, who is funding what? Why isn't it being funded? Why do you have the football coach teaching chemistry to college-bound high school students when he's not qualified to do so at the magnet academic school in the system of the largest city in the state? Why would you do that? Because the people in the community have failed at so many levels, at funding, at allocating, electing the school board, at choosing administrators. I have to say the administrator that was running our school system got in a lot of trouble over kickbacks and such regarding the service contracts shortly after we left. I graduated from that school. But nonetheless, and that's one student who wanted to be a scientist at one school in 1990s America. Now you multiply that. You take all those other kids who weren't even all that interested in science to start with, who are dealing with the incompetent football coach bumbling through chemistry, dealing with the, I'm sorry, we don't have the money for the lab experiments, you'll just have to read it and try to understand, dealing with going off to college and finding themselves spectacularly ill prepared compared with their colleagues who went to private schools in Beverly Hills or prep schools on the East Coast. And then you get to college itself, where I was taught by a Nobel Prize winner, and he was not a good teacher. He was not a good professor. You get to your dream school, you say, I will be a scientist in 4 years. And on the first day of class, the professor gets up and says, I designed tests for most of you to fail. Why? Why would you
I
do this?
think my wife had teachers like that.
Why would you?
Okay. So we can say, we're looking at something, and certainly the school system Ken was speaking of is a very wealthy school system. But when you take these awful failures, we're not even talking about how they teach, but the basic failures to fund, to credential, and then the, quite frankly, crap attitude of the professors when students, particularly from lower economic rungs, from disadvantaged backgrounds, you do everything right. You pass the test, you get the grades, you get the scholarship, you get all the way to the top of the ladder. And then you get to that door, they say, we don't really want you here. This isn't designed for you. And then we wonder why people don't get science, when for decade upon decade, we've been putting all of these obstacles in the path of the children. The children of my age group are now the parents of the teenagers. They were failed. Their kids are being failed. And we look at this and we say, what's wrong with these people? And a lot of it comes down to the decisions of the people who were running the school boards in the 1980s and 90s. And if we want to reverse that sort of damage, we're going to have to look at our priorities as a society. You're going to have to pay attention to your school board races. You're going to have to pay attention to your property taxes, or maybe reinvent education in your community so it's not property taxes paying for it, so that Beverly Hills and the East Coast have these beautifully funded schools where they get the lab gear and they get the professional quality stuff and they get that good teachers, and a student in Memphis, Tennessee gets Not a whole heck of a lot. And that's my soapbox.
Thing, Diane, I'd like to comment is that you were educated in probably the most important state of all, Tennessee. I think it was in Dayton, Tennessee, where Clarence Darrow
Yes.
Did the Scopes monkey trial in the 1920s.
Yes.
And, that was in Tennessee, and Tennessee should be leading the nation with science education. I'm depressed to find out that it doesn't appear to be. I think Michigan's doing much better, and I know Arizona's doing not too badly, but basically, as a country, we are doing just terribly right now, science education. But I wanted to add that. Diane,
And there's
good
also a difference between what's required on paper. As I said, if you looked at the graduation requirements for a Tennessee college-bound high school student in the 1990s versus the Michigan requirements, you would think Tennessee had a spectacular school system, and maybe by many metrics we did. But again, those 3 years of science aren't doing you as much good as they should if you've got football coach, football coach, football coach as your teacher, because your school system cares about football a lot more than it does about chemistry.
There's another political thing about this as well. When we talk about climate change, you find there's a group of politicians that say that it doesn't exist. And what the point is that what you have in Congress is you have a thing called lobbyists. And you have the petroleum industry that's coming in and said you need to use this gas, and the climate change isn't there. It's not there. And what they say to them is, we're going to pay you enough money, politician, so that you can be reelected. And you got to pass things that are in our favor. You've got that across the board. You've got that in the big pharma. You've got that in all kinds of different areas where the money comes first. And many of the older politicians say, I'm not going to live that long anyway. And the point is, I want to make as much money as I can. And that's what you're getting also. I want to make as much money as I can. It doesn't matter. They don't even care about their grandchildren in that case. And that's another issue that you have, where you have a climate change situation now that could be terminal to us in the next 15 years. Terminal.
And let me tell you, I've been concerned about climate change for a few years, but suddenly having a granddaughter,
it doesn't make a lot of difference. It does a lot more now, right?
Yeah, a whole lot more.
Okay. And that's what you have with these politicians. They're senior politicians, and it doesn't matter to us. And I don't want to get political on this, but it is.
Yeah, as somebody who actually works in Lansing, Ken, you're right, but at the same time, that is really reductionist, and it doesn't explain the whole sweep of anti-science. Again, I came from Tennessee. There's not necessarily big money in being a denier of health education.
I get that.
It's not the oil lobby. It's not the fossil fuel lobby, but it's a powerful, socially prevalent lobby nonetheless that uses schools as a springboard to say, we're not going to teach these kids about certain scientific concepts because we think these concepts are evil.
Evil. That's it.
And that is the dominant culture. I was very fortunate that the same science teacher who encouraged me to go into science when I was 12 years old stood up at the head of the room and said he was not going to accept test answers that had any formulation of God did it, because people could believe that.
Sure.
That was not what he was teaching. And he failed some students who did what their parents wanted them to do and came in and put on the 7th grade test. These are 12-year-olds. God did this. He was brave. There are many others who are the opposite of Mr. Nelms.
Yep.
I can't tell you though, just referring and to talk to the point that Diane made. Right now, things changed. So we're lucky that it isn't the football coach that is generally teaching chemistry any longer, because you have to be highly qualified now, at least in Michigan. I don't know about other states. That means that you have to pass your MTTC exam, which is a 4-hour exam in the curriculum you're teaching. Otherwise, you're not, you can't teach it. You must be highly qualified. It does go back though to the heads of the state and our state school board, which I'd have to check now, but at one point in time, it was 6 people. 5 of the 6 were MBAs. And they were the ones making educational policy. The one who was an educator had taught in an elementary level for 2 years, and that was it before they left. To me, that's kind of like a plumber going into an operating room and telling a surgeon how to do an operation. Those that are making educational policy should be the educators. They're the ones that are in the trenches, they know. And the inequality of materials, to speak to what Diane was saying, it's very difficult when you have such a disproportionate amount of availability to stuff to teach the young, those that are up and coming, about science when you can't do labs or there isn't money or there isn't, and I don't know if you're aware, but starting in 2010, there was a total of $10 billion taken away from education until just this last year. So for 10 years, they were taking money out of education. You're not going to be educating students about astronomy, about global climate change, about human anatomy, anthropology. It doesn't matter what it is. We cannot survive on this planet without understanding our past, without looking at the sky to understand where our future is taking us, and without the availability to be able to teach students, and more also the interference of parents. So we deal with the double shot of having uneducated parents as well as, trying to tell us how we should educate their children. That's not the way it works. Again, you follow the facts. Math works for a reason. Science, we follow the facts. So it's a minefield right now, and it's overburdening and overtaxing your educational system. And you have those science deniers.
Well,
That comes through huge.
you got another situation too. You got a guy like Elon Musk who's putting up 45,000 satellites.
Yes.
All right. And when somebody said to him, "You're going to block us from being able to see the sky," he says, "You don't need to look at the sky from the Earth. You got to go into space to see it better." That's what he said.
That's
Yeah.
for the greater good. Oh, bite me.
Yeah, right.
Again,
40
who's good?
Right.
It is.
I'm gonna interject something here. It's great discussion. One of the problems we have in sharing, science and how it can, understanding the real scientific process is not a belief. Where you have situations where all they see is poverty and all you see is, I just got to survive, day to day. I don't care so much about what's going on, in the universe or, what's out there. I just want to live. And one of the problems we have is getting bridging that gap between those who feel like they can't afford to spend time learning science, didn't do well in science in school. It wasn't interesting. Um, Bridging the gap somehow between those of us that did enjoy science, that understand scientific concepts, and are able to use them for a greater good. One of the problems that I see, and I saw in the chat, there's a concern with religion versus science. This is just an example. We have a lot of people in our society that like to be right no matter what their station in life is. And that's where we drift from not only the scientific process, but we drift from what a lot of the mainstream religions teach about humility and understanding and listening. So there's some issues on both sides. Um, One of the challenges, I think, going forward, we have scientific evidence of so many things, climate change. Um, I'm happy to see that it's cold outside because it's supposed to be cold at this time. Um, but we've seen our temperatures go up. Um, Bridging this gap between what it is we know and figuring out how do we get through to people that would otherwise legislate away everything that we're trying to do and trying to accomplish. How do we catch them early on and prevent this from happening? It's a tough question, and I don't know that we have answers. Um, when Michigan football is more important than Michigan engineering, and you can see that because it appeals to a lot of the common mass. Just look around, those of us that are in Michigan, look around and notice how many more Wolverine shirts you're seeing. Some of us that have gone to the school have worn them all the time. And some of us that have gone to the school realize that Michigan is playing a huge role in the fight against COVID-19. They're playing a huge role in space. We have the all Michigan crew from Apollo 15. There's a number of reasons for this school, and the science pedigree is probably larger than the football pedigree. But what do people want to see? They want to see if we can beat Georgia on the 31st. So we fight a how science is presented in the first place. You will have people probably say, "Oh, that's what the folks from Revenge of the Nerds knew." Um, Fighting this is tough, but solutions come in the form of if you show something practical that has a science that you show the science behind something practical, and then you get someone interested. And our advantage as astronomers, anytime whether I've been in the hood or I've been in a more affluent neighborhood, and I point at something in the night sky and tell them what it is, everyone looks up and goes, "Wow, I didn't realize that." Didn't matter if they were hood, didn't matter where they were from. And I think astronomy, more so than some of the other sciences, has the advantage of bridging that gap because what's up there in the sky doesn't change. There isn't much you can say on social media. A lot of the pictures that I post have gained followings from everybody, including the old bowling community that I'm in. I've had people walk up, I go into an alley and they say, "Dude, your pictures are awesome." And why I do the images, not just for the accolades, but those images reach people and remind them of something that's greater than themselves and might be the portal through which we're able to teach scientific methods. Why is this stuff there? Good news about the Catholic Church being they're trying to address, they're also not accepting the because God created it answer, not in the same way of it's just a blanket answer. It's no, we are made of star stuff. The faith part of it, we're separating the faith part of it and saying, here's the science behind it. The science is real. The faith comes in, for those that are it comes in at another part. But we are not out to deny the science, which is, I think, something that's kind of assumed. And it's something that those of us that are part of the church have to teach other church members that just simply want to throw a blanket God is a magician thing on there. So there are a number of challenges in reaching the common folks and reaching folks whose only purpose in life is I just want to make money. That's it, and could care less about the implications of ignoring science, and we have a good example with COVID-19. We have a lot of people who ignore the science or have it misrepresented for them, because of whatever other agenda that's going on. It's been mentioned here before. And I said, we have an opportunity to try and make a dent in this, but accepting the fact that there are some people that are going to say no when we say, would you like to look at the night sky? I think that's the first step. Bill Nye has attempted to save the world many times, and I'm sure he will try again. But there's, we have what we know, and just getting one or two people to listen and starting young, going back to youth who are going to naturally be fascinated by looking at the night sky, and hope for the best that we can start changing minds. And it can start with a simple start. It could start with telling someone, hey, you were born a Scorpio. Well, there's your constellation right over there. And that might be the opening. I did that at a camp where a lot of kids from Detroit came in, weren't as interested in looking at through telescopes. I started pointing out signs, and suddenly they were interested. I didn't know that. You just have to find a way. So
You can link
that's
things
my
like
2 cents.
you can link things like astrology to astronomy as well. And actually, that's how astronomy really got its start. Was you take those things and you say, well, there's a reason they're like they are, and there's a reason why the planets move through all those constellations and all that other. And this is the reason why, and you can start explaining it. David, you got a great thing going on Sunday. That's exactly what that needs to be done. It has to be. You got to get to the kids. My biggest thing when I go out and teach is I don't mind going seeing seniors and everything like that, but I want to go see the kids and start getting them interested and intrigued in it. And that's that's what we got to do. That's our stuff.
But that is a starting point, Ken.
Right.
There is a very long road between being that curious 6-year-old who says, ooh, I can be an astronomer, I can be a marine biologist, I can do chemistry,
Correct.
I can do physics. I don't know what physics is, but it sounds cool, I can do it. And then the whole road that takes kids, especially the kids that Adrian was talking about, who are dealing with economic disadvantage, who are trying to survive.
Yes.
In underfunded school systems, like Therese, one of our members, teaches in schools that are not necessarily well off. Getting them from that point of being that 6-year-old, looking at the telescope and saying, wow, to the adult going to college, thriving in college, not being met with that door in the face of you don't really belong here, and we don't care if you fail these tests. And then getting the job.
Right.
I do not regret that I did not ultimately get a degree in science and get a graduate degree in science like I intended, or a PhD. I stopped regretting that because I got my BA, I got a job, it paid good money, I had vacation time, I could buy telescopes, I could go on vacations, and I could live a good, debt-free, fun life with my spouse, doing science and trying to connect with other people and those kids that you mentioned, Ken, and try to impart how much I love the sky, how much I love science.
I know that.
And I wouldn't be doing that if that were my job.
Right. Well, again, I was talked out of
her hand up for a long, long time just before. I do want to say that I really appreciated what Diane and what Adrian have been saying. I do want to add, however, that the best science teacher that I've ever had in my whole life and still have is a coach. And she was a coach and she knew her science. And I think that that's the best science teacher I've ever had in my life. And Therese down here has wanted to say something for some time, and I think we should give her the floor for a moment.
Indeed.
I appreciate that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm a great lover of the skies, and I'm also a musician and an artist. So my kids love me. I've been doing this for 40 years, and I just have to say we can't give up. We just can't give up because I have little kids staying after school at 5 o'clock. Parents don't have phone numbers. Why? Because their phones were shut off. And so these little children want to be in choir. And they can't be in choir after school because parents can't pick them up. And my statement is we are speaking to a world that is already functional. There's a lot of kids who aren't functional. I love my babies. I show them what I can in the skies. And there are so many of you who have come out to my schools and showed them with your telescopes. And truthfully, when I say look up, they will with me. There are so many little babies who will look up. And I love teaching and I love this program, but there are so many people we're not reaching. And just saying, thank you for giving me inspiration to keep going because I love looking up. I love the skies. I love when my brother taught me in Nebraska and we sat out in the dark skies. He said, look up, that's Orion. Do you know who he is? I was a little child and I looked up and I said, that's pretty cool, you know? So here I'm in Detroit now, you know, you can't see anything in Detroit. But thank you for giving me time to speak because I love my babies. I love teaching in Detroit and I'm going to keep pushing it. I love telling them there's more. I pull them to the windows. Look over there. Do you see it? Even the sun rising. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Therese, I think you have hit the nail on the head. I think but before we get to Jim, I think what we need to do, the key to solving this is to go straight to the kids, straight to the next generation. Because if they don't solve it right now, today, we're not going to have astronomy clubs in the future. We're not going to have astronomy or science in the schools. We need to get right to the kids themselves. I got started that way.
Simple as that. Look at the sun rising.
Okay, and now I think we should go to Jim, who's had his hand up.
Thank you.
Just a quickie. I posted in the chat room. I just finished reading a very excellent book that some of you might be interested in about this topic, entitled Galileo and the Science Deniers by Mario Levy. It's posted in the chat room. Any of you who are interested, you might learn something from it.
So there's something I'd like to bring up. When we were having this panel at that North American Science Fiction Convention, right near the end, one of the panelists says, you know, I'm a scientist. I am working in my field. And well, actually, let me back up. One of the things they said was, what we need to do is get more people in politics that understand science. Scientists on the panel said, I'm working in my field. I love my job. why would I want to be a politician and go do battle with those people? And you know what I mean by those people. This was 2014, and the those people problem is a little different. I would say kind of worse. And but I actually don't know how many people, how many members of the Warren Astronomical Society are indeed scientists working in their field, but would you consider stopping that to be a politician in today's environment?
I actually work for, in my capacity as a state employee of the House of Representatives, a microbiologist who is presently a state representative for Michigan. And she's in her second term. She's running for a third term next year. She's darn good at her job. She's absolutely committed. She's trying to take all of the everything she knows about microbiology into protecting Michigan's water. And she's in there doing the work day in, day out. And we need more of that
A
because
lot more. Yikes.
it's hard and it takes a certain personality to survive that, but we've got one and we do need more. I see Alan Kaplan had his hand up.
Just have a thought. It seems that there's an awful lot of people that talk about science versus religion, and they're anti-science. I would rather use the words facts instead of science. We are talking about using the facts. Scientists study things to discover the facts. And be it astronomy or chemistry or medicine or anything, they do studies to determine the facts. And people should be hearing the word facts, because I think that the science is kind of like it just, oh, that's the opposite of religion for a lot of people. And I think that it's important. And I think Bob's point of having more people in politics, I certainly in positions where they can make these important decisions about what's being taught in the schools and where the money goes, et cetera. And then I have just one last point, and that is that I have had some PhD professors that were not good teachers. And I've had others who were not PhDs who were excellent teachers. And I think that teaching is a very important, and good teaching is probably a very rare skill. But the importance of getting young people or even older people to be interested in things, to be curious about things. Curiosity will get more people into science. Curiosity will get more people to listen to scientists. And I think that that is the real key, is getting people to be curious. And looking up something on Facebook or Google is not really solving curiosity. That's just the easy way out.
And unfortunately, Alan, I think a lot of people prefer that easy way out. We're, charismatic folks with money or looks or whatever are replacing the propensity to listen to those who have facts. For instance, our bodies are made of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen and other elements that are created in supernovas. You have those that would be curious to connect those dots and say, is that for real? But then you have others that just simply don't want to think on a level of, well, those are the molecules, those are the elements that are in our bodies. It doesn't, we're still able to talk. We're human beings. But if you break us down into elements, that's what you'll find, along with other things. And it just doesn't connect for some. That's okay. But the problem becomes when it doesn't connect to people who would rather make up another truth and then have enough charisma to spread that to others that would rather listen. I noted the return of flat earth not long before 2019, 2020. It seemed like, and of course, social media, it seemed like a lot of people were willing to say online, whether they meant it or not, that, oh, I believe the earth is flat. And most of the arguments were conspiracy. NASA is lying to you. That sort of argument is appealing to a lot more people than it might have appealed to, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Lack of respect for authority. And with social media, one of the biggest issues that I see with social media is the ability to gain followers, the ability to become a celebrity almost overnight, because you have an idea that people that you don't know will come in and say, I like your idea. And you've got some greed taking over. You've got some, oh, I'm more important, than I thought I was. So it is a battle, working with folks who come in already with the idea that we already know it all. The Dunning-Kruger principle that is in full effect. And you have the voices that are saying things are not being refuted as much as we would like. And it's almost an approach sort of thing. Something that I had heard, and it may relate more to COVID than it does science in general. If you tell people this is what you should do, people by nature tend to want to rebel against it, and maybe especially here in America. Well, no, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to exercise my freedoms to believe what I want. There's that word belief again. The only thing that then changes their mind is if they're hit with the consequence directly head on, and then go, oh, I guess they're right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and get vaccinated now. No, you can't. You have to wait. Oh, really? And but force them to do something, you can't tell me what to do. The idea of just not saying anything and hoping that people just out of their common sense or whatever just go ahead and do it. I don't know that that's working as well either.
Well,
it should work, but I just don't know if it is. So yeah, there are plenty of challenges out there for us to battle. The need to be right being a huge one.
To your point about social media and clout and that form of disinformation, Adrian, actually I've done a fair amount of amateur research into that, and it is very alarming that the very tools of critical thinking that we, scientifically minded people promote as, hey, exposing people to this toolbox for critical thinking will help correct the problem. No, because you can actually use those same tools of critical thinking to think your way into disinformation.
Well, there you go.
That's a whole thing in itself. But we've circling around the topic of teaching, and since we've got Connie, who is a teacher, I would like to hear some more from Connie if she would like to say some more things about good teaching, bad teaching, scary teaching, where we're doing well and doing poorly, on these populations of kids that we are trying to bring to facts.
There's one thing, quick add before she goes in. There's a thing there's this difference between stupidity and willful ignorance. And what you have today in a society is people aren't all stupid. That's not true. There's willful ignorance. Those are the people that are smart enough to get it, but are choosing not to. That's a really big deal. Willful ignorance.
It is.
Go ahead.
Very much so. I can say just from, what was said before, we don't give up. Those of us that are teachers, we're definitely not in it for the money. There's definitely very little glory. Bob's laughing in the background. You do it because you have a passion to try to open the minds and help little ones explore. I teach middle school, and when I get them their brains, we teach them to close their brains off and to not to think outside that box. What we're trying to do now is to get them to think outside that box, to not be so rigid in their thoughts and you know, what they've learned. Like anything, you have good, you have bad in all things. I can honestly say, at least all I can speak to is my perspective of my district, which is very focused on how do we interlock all of the curriculums instead of piecemealing them and having the kids put, you know, English goes here and social studies goes here and science goes here. It's let's work together. So, you know, if I'm teaching astronomy, but I'm teaching history and astronomy, then that can go into the history class. And then perhaps there's a writing assignment that goes into the English class. So it makes it a much more deeper learning experience. Science is one of the easy things to teach. I will say that simply because it's something you can make fun. From dragging them out.
If you're the right teacher.
True. But you have more opportunities. There's a lot of hands-on stuff. Most people learn best by manipulating things and hands-on and viewing things and doing labs, and whether it's virtually on a computer or whether it's actually taking that toad and dissecting it. Stepping outside to view clouds, to view our atmosphere, to look at sundogs, to, you know, what's going on out there, to having students walk the solar system. Because prior to that, we as humans tend to relate things to things we already know. That's why Marias are called Marias on the moon. It was believed that they were once seas. Why? Because we're full of water down here. So getting them to understand, no, the solar system is really big. It's not like those posters you see where all the planets are all lined up and they're, you know, really close together. That's not the way it is. How do you get that across to students? So I will say that we have greater access to, and we're building communities in teachers. There's things called teachers pay teachers, where you have a great lesson plan, you can put it up there and you charge like $2 and other teachers can say, hey, that's a great idea. So that's one thing that technology has afforded teachers, is it has afforded us the ability to gain access to other people's great ideas on how to teach, on how to get things across. I just did plate tectonics, the three plate boundaries using a Milky Way bar. Okay, so my students had to use a Milky Way bar to show the 3 types of plate boundaries. It's like, all right, if you're going to get to a middle school kid, feed them chocolate, you know, but it's also quite a learning experience. And then you see those light bulbs. Oh, I get it. So I would say today, you know, there's a lot of gloom and doom out there. It is frustrating. It's like any business out there. You can get frustrating. You can frustrated. The politicking going on and on. You sometimes have to just rise above that and focus on what is the purpose. And the purpose is, if we're teaching children, that is our next generation. Let's face it, every generation that's out there, we're all trying to fix the errors that our parents' generation created on our planet. because they didn't know. Or if they did, it was ignored. So now it's left to the next generation to try to figure things out. And believe it or not, our young ones are figuring it out. Just look at Greta. Okay, I'm going to say her last name wrong. Bob, you know better than I do. Grunberg?
Thunberg, and
Yeah,
why aren't more
Thunberg.
kids in the U.S. striking?
Yeah. I mean, here's an Asperger's child who at 14 began a whole revolution around the world when it came to global climate change. And I think our kids right now have an incredibly strong voice, stronger than any other generation. So I think there's a lot of hope. I think that you have some excellent teachers out there that it doesn't matter what the parents want. They're going to go ahead and do what they should do to educate the students so they can become well-informed adults, because they're the ones who are going to be running our society. And let me tell you, as a middle school teacher, that can sometimes be scary when I see who I have. You know, they're hormonally impaired children, and you're thinking one day they're going to be running, you know, the country. But they do advance beyond that and show some remarkable abilities. So, and if you got some decent teachers, anything is possible. It is, again, my policy is to tell them, follow the science, follow the facts. And they'll repeat that to you. They'll hear something, you know, flat earth. Follow the facts. And I make them think about it. Once you do that, it's funny to listen to them all of a sudden begin to scoff and laugh at things that the adults are saying or doing, or, you know, are they dumb? And I'm like, well, yeah, you know. So it's a challenge, but it's one that's worthwhile.
We've got a couple minutes left. Did we want to take some more comments from the audience before? Does anybody else have anything to say? Not on our panel. Anyone?
Well, it's me
Go ahead.
again, and I've been trying to talk as much as the panel for some reason. But I will, piggybacking on Connie, I think your comments, Explore Scientific's Global Star Party that David and I are part of. One real promising note that you'll see if you listen in or watch it is you'll notice a lot of young children giving presentations on astronomy. One young girl named Levy who
That's
has
awesome.
given herself a title, Levy in the Stars, and she's been doing it for 2 or 3 years. I think she turns 12 next year. There are a couple of other, there's both girls and boys that are using their creativity and their love of science to create awesome presentations, and all over the world as well. We get to see children from India give presentations, as well as there's presentations from parts of Europe, from the UK. They are getting it. Things like Space Camp are full of not only these children, but parents that decide, rather than be afraid of science or whatever it is, like the eclipses, afraid that you'll burn your eyes out. No, you won't. They are backing their children and providing the support and enabling these children to continue to learn science, starting astronomy clubs. There's a young man, Conal Richards, who's won some Astronomical League awards, and he's at Penn State, starting an astronomy club. He started an astronomy club at his high school, and now he's starting an astronomy club and an Astronomical League student group at Penn State. So there is hope coming with the generation below us. and they definitely need our guidance, and they need to see more people who are just willing to share their knowledge, whether we're amateurs or professionals. I think the call's been made, and a lot of us are doing what we can to heed it using whatever skills we happen to have. So it's these things are happening. Unfortunately, we just have to wade our way through this. A generation reminds me of a story of I think there was a gentleman that ran for president, and he had a scientific mind. He was a scientist, and he said, "I've got all the thinkers on my side." And his advisor said, "Yes, but you need the majority in order to win." And we have to see if we can push the majority to be more of the thinkers, not necessarily to avoid all of the problems. There's still gun violence going on schools. There's still poverty. There's still a lot of things to face, but we can play our role in giving those, whether it's through informal or formal astronomy clubs, or in other methods, just giving them opportunities to see different things in life, and give them some choices, and hope that we reach more of them. So again, there is some hope. It's still a fight, and there's still folks that value money over everything, or themselves. We just have to keep going through it. That's my 2 cents.
The
I
one
wanted to
takeaway.
say something to what Adrian was saying is all of you have to understand how critically important you are to the education of the young, especially when it comes to astronomy. We couldn't do it without you. You're the ones who make it fascinating for them. All your outreach programs, every child that you reach is one that you teach, and you make such a critical difference. And whether it's a star party, whether it's, Bob Berta going to, reaching out to the elementaries, whatever it is, continue to do that, because that truly is where the hope lies. I only have 55 minutes to try to get a lesson in. And that doesn't always, and I got to kind of follow what the state wants me to teach. You guys have that ability to say, here,
Well, here,
and lay it out for them. And it truly is amazing and makes a tremendous difference. So please keep that up.
there was a situation when I was in high school. I started an astronomy club when I was in 9th grade. And one of my people that was in the astronomy club became an astrophysicist. And he says it started with that. Later on, I taught my daughter's school, and there are 2 kids that graduated with her that are now astrophysicists. And they said that it was stimulated because of the fact that I got them interested in that. And that's what you have to do. We have to do it as ourselves now. We have to go with Connie and all these other people and talk to these kids about it. And there's so many things that make it look so cool and everything like that. So it's just a little step like that. And that's what we need to do going forward. And it's our job to do that, period.
I would have to agree. And
Just
I
think
wanna,
about what it took to get you interested originally.
I got into,
Just think about it.
yeah, I know. I was a first grader. My sister was in the 6th grade, and she brought home a science book with the planets on it. And I said, "What's that all about?" My dad said to me, "These are the planets." And that's what had happened is right there. Expose the kids to something, and then they'll spark. That's what it is. And the way you got into it, Jim, for example, how did you get into it yourself? What happened?
Star party, big telescope, 13 years old. That's how it was. Each of you have got another story, but think about that.
Ken Bertin showing me through his telescope when we were kids on his driveway got me interested in astronomy. It's Ken's fault.
I'm sorry.
So the
became
one
a
takeaway I'm getting from here is that we need awesome science teachers, and from what I'm gathering here, our outreach team are awesome science teachers that aren't restricted by government requirements for curriculum. So, yeah, we definitely need to get more kids involved. And one of the things that I've been kind of on for a while now is I'd like to see more youth members in the Warren Astronomical Society. I'm not sure how to do that, but you know, let's get kids interested first, and maybe they'll join up. So we're heading up on 10 o'clock, Diane. Is it time to shut this down?
We are indeed 10 on the nose. Thank you so much.
Yes,
for
thank you for our
joining us tonight.
participants.
Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you for the fabulous questions, and hope to see as many of you as possible on Thursday, 7 o'clock.
Banquet.
Virtual banquet begins. One last
Earth-
shindig before the end of the year.
The Earth is flat.
No, it's not.
See the astronomy picture of the moon with the flat Earth shadow on it.
Yeah. Dr. Paul M. Sutter gave a great answer for when they ask if the moon is flat. Just say, sure. It sure looks flat to you when you're standing on the road. It's also an oblate spheroid, but believe what you must. Some battles are not worth fighting, and I actually like that approach.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that, I really believe the flat Earth turned up, and a lot of people said it because they could.
Crazy.
All right.
All
Good
right.
night, y'all.
Good night, everyone.
See ya.
Good night.
See ya
Thank you, everybody.
Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
As everyone bails.
Not everybody.
Not everybody.
Not-
We still have.
That was great. That was just a great.
I'd like to do this again with some other topics.
I think it'd be great. And give a big hug to Connie, please. She's an inspiration. She is. She's great. The best. You married up.